Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are going to be playing as the forces of the Dark Elves against the forces of the Empire. And for this match, well, we're doing something pretty classic, a pretty conventional, swarming, aggressive build, because I do think this is a good way to play Dark Elves against Empire. And we've shaken things up a little bit from my usual with a few unit swaps. So first and foremost, we are rocking Malekith. I do think he is the better, if not the best Lord against Empire. Definitely one of the stronger choices you have. He's got respectable combat stats. I like to bring him on a cold one, just because he's pretty tanky. He's got that insane missile resist and physical resist combo, so you get a lot of damage resistance there. You've got a built-in shield as well, so you're fairly tanky. You've got AP damage, of course, decent melee attack and melee defense. You're kind of mobile, all that good stuff. And of course, you're still a caster. So we've got Chillwind. This is a good way to catch skirmish cav a little more efficiently. It's a good way to punish lined up Empire State troops, and can just in general be used to shift the tide of an engagement a tiny bit. And of course, Soul Stealer, which is really the big gimmick for Malekith. A big old AoE nuke to punish blobbers, as well as to save Malekith in a pinch. Besides that, we do have Stand Your Ground, of course, as well as Gaze of Malice. Gaze of Malice, excellent for punishing blobbed up Empire infantry. Now, alongside him, well, the front line is the same as usual. Or almost the same as usual, I should say. We've got a line of Bleak Swords here, backed up by 2 Blackheart Corsairs. But rather than Sisters of Slaughter, I've actually decided to go with Sisters of Singing Doom. And the reason for that is simple. One of the big issues you might have with this sort of swarmy build is that because we didn't bring a dragon, and obviously you don't want to bring a Charybdis or Hydra against Empire. That's, just, in my opinion, a pretty horrible decision. You don't have terror. And you've got no real way of imbuing terror. So what I decided to do is bring the Sisters, because they're fairly survivable unless they take a volley from like grenade launchers. And they do provide that terror effect, so they could potentially rout a lot of state troops quickly, opening the path for my swarming cavalry to really make a dent and do some damage. Now for the cavalry regiments, we do have 3 units of Dark Riders with shields. These guys are great for zoning my opponent, as well as chasing off routed units from the field. They're fairly cheap at 500. They can do quite a bit of work there. And then 4 units of Cold One Knights. These guys are insanely cost-effective against Empire cavalry. They'll crush Reichsguard, they'll crush Knights of the Blazing Sun, even if they take the full charge. And if they don't, they'll do amazingly well. And then, of course, they can grind down Empire infantry. Okay, they can cycle charge them, all that stuff. They are an AP cavalry after all, and they do still have that 44 charge bonus. Finally, we do have the Slaanesha's Harvesters. Excellent unit in this match, I think, because they're splash damage, great against state troops. They've got poison, which is good for those debuffs. It also stacks with the Witch Elf poison here, so if we can potentially get Sisters of Singing Doom on a target, we've got a melee defense and speed debuff. That's going to be stacking with the Harvester debuff, so that's like minus 40% mobility. Very potent there. And of course, they do have a Bound Soul Stealer as well as Word of Pain, which can help you survive against the Demigryphs. For my opponent, he has gone for a rather cav-heavy build, though there's still a respectable front line here. Going over things, we've got Karl Franz here, rocking Up in the Skies atop Deathclaw, coming with full kit. So he's going to be an absolute murder beast, able to crump Malekith very quickly with Gall Miraz. And of course, he's got the Reichland Runefang and Stand Your Ground to keep his troops in the fray and make this Demi-Blob very potent. And keep in mind, we don't have missiles, which traditionally for Dark Elves, if you bring some Dark Riders or Scourge Runners, you will demolish Demigryphs pretty easily. But without those, you're in a bit of a pickle. Besides that, though, we do have, obviously, the 2 Demigryph Halberds who are rocking it with a Warrior Priest. And this guy is, of course, quite the force to be reckoned with all those buffs, debuffs, and, of course, Soulfire. So that's good bombardment there, can really nuke my cavalry quickly. And Benediction, this is something I don't see often enough, but it is, in my opinion, an excellent choice. Empire cavalry does not have the best leadership values. You might think right now, obviously, it looks great, but Demigryphs have base leadership value, I believe, 70. So it's really not as good as you would think. 70 leadership, it breaks quite easily. And so having that extra 8 leadership is huge. Also, Jade Wizard in there with Regrowth, Earthblood. No Shield of Thorns here, which I think is a little bit of a mistake. I like to bring that spell. It can make you a little tanky against the AP Dark Elves bring, but still, very good combo there. Front line of swordsmen, including the Sigmar Sun, so they'll be able to hold okay, and 2 Empire Knights who can apply some annoying pressure. And you can see the Pistoliers here already skirmishing away. Now, Pistoliers usually a decent choice against Dark Elves. They can do some good chip damage, but I think here where we're just doing a full-blooded rush, they're going to have a hard time netting the value they need. Fortunately, a bit of a slip up here on my part. Dark Riders getting trapped by these Knights. And that was a big misplay on my part. We keep pulling away, though, and the cold ones will be able to get a charge in. But look at this pro play. Now, obviously, you come to expect this on this channel, you know, Malekith YOLOing ahead. But I had all my troops moving forward as a blob. And, yeah, Malekith got a little separated. So Karl's crumping him across the noggin with all of his buffs going. He's got Earthblood going down, which is just a total waste, in my opinion. My opponent probably expecting some counterpunching there. And Malekith's just getting wrecked. I popped Stand Your Ground, tried to save him here. Pop Soul Stealer, so that's going to do quite a lot of damage to these Demigryphs and all these troops. Melt off a few models, but kind of a last-ditch effort. That's not going to save me. Malekith's kind of dead here. But Cold War Knights are committing here, swarming in. Blackheart Corsairs and Bleak Swords pushing forward, and we are pushing, and you can see we've actually removed these knights here, so a little bit of a win there, even though Malekith will be sent to the Shadow Realm, getting crumped by Karl Franz very, very quickly, despite all that resistance. Big misplay there on my opponent's part using Soulfire, though I guess did remove the Sisters, so kind of a win, but I think that's a misplay. But in the meantime, the Empire Knights getting dragged into the muck, and we are getting some light cav into the fray. You can see they're pushing forward. Cold War Knights rout off the Empire Knights, and they're now open for a rear charge. And my opponent is finding himself enveloped. Dark Riders pouring into the back, ignoring the Sigmar Sons. You do not want to waste your time trying to kill off an unbreakable unit right now. Ignoring them, getting in on the Swordsmen, and these guys are going to tear out with the Sisters of the Singing Doom nearby. So that is a quickly broken infantry force there. And suddenly we are largely isolating my opponent's cavalry. And so now another Soul Stealer going down, of course, this time from the Slaanesha's Harvesters, and they are now pouring in with that surround. Of course, my opponent blew all his abilities sniping Malekith. So suddenly this pit fight not looking too hot. The Demigryphs getting dragged down to the muck. Cold One Riders, of course, Cold One Knights do, of course, have 42 weapon strength. That's actually 56 versus Lars. They've got, I believe, bonus versus Lars of 14, if we look over here. So with 14 bonus versus Lars, they're hitting like a truck against these Demigryphs, and there's poison in the mix, so these guys are just struggling for dear life, getting swarmed. Dark Riders pouring in and looking for those openings. And my opponent, yeah, he's got Terror, and he's removed my Lord from play, so our leadership ain't too hot. But with this surround, we are whittling these guys down and dragging them into the muck. Word of Pain crippling these Demigryphs. Earthblood trying to save them, but rough spot to be in. And as you can see, the tide is shifting. Witch Elves now pouring back in. In the meantime, Cold One Knights overwhelming these swordsmen. And Dark Riders here being used as a distraction, chasing off these Pistoliers and wasting their time. And sometimes that's a big win in and of itself. You can just remove units like that from play, you win. And of course, in the meantime, we did have Murderous Prowess proc, which helped us shift this fight here pretty decisively. Demigryph suddenly slaughtered almost to a man. 7 models here, 4 over here. So even with heals, they're not going to come back very well. Now, beautiful Soulfire here, murderizing the Witch Elves and the Blackheart Corsairs, but we're sticking in the fight now. It's just Karl and the Warrior Priest. They will get surrounded and beaten down. Keep in mind, Karl's only got 39 melee defense right now with the Witch Elf debuff in there. You know, that Witch Elf debuff, of course, does bring his melee defense down by 10%. And suddenly he's rampaging. So he's trapped. We've actually removed the Demigryphs from play using, once again, the Slaanesha's Harvesters and the Dark Riders with their high speed, removing those troops from play. Able to get a surround on the Jade Wizard, remove him from play, and my opponent's troops are getting removed in a surgical fashion. Over here, the swords getting in the fray over there. Murderous Mastery still going off on the Sisters. They're popping, wrecking the face of this Warrior Priest. At this point, it's just a matter of time. The Sigmar Sons will get worn down by the Corsairs and those units in the field. Obviously, they will fight rather well and might actually win in a 1v1, but it's too much for my opponent, and he does concede the game. So going over the build here, obviously massive misplay there with Malekith, but I just want to highlight how powerful a Dark Elf Swarm can still be, and I've been seeing some talk from various folks asking just how to deal with this matchup, and a lot of players seem to find this to be a difficult matchup for Dark Elves, and I think it can be. I think a good Empire player can bring a lot of cav, and that can give you a hard time. And in my opinion, swarming is a good tactic. You can try to counterplay Empire Skirmish with, say, Scourge Runners and units like that, but I find that just swarming and punching really hard will overrun Empire. It can really ruin their day. And I did find the Sisters of the Singing Doom here, obviously not racking up the highest skill count, but Terror, very useful against the state troops, kind of useful against Demigryphs and those sorts of troops. And with the Cav Mob, we were able to endure, despite Malekith going down like a 9-pin. And you imagine 1 or 2 more Soul Stealers thrown into that fight, it would have gone even more heavily in our favor. And with this much swarmage, you're not too bad against enemy missile blobs and that sort of stuff. And you don't present your opponent with great targets for, say, cannon fire. So I think it's nice to bring a build like this. You can see all the chevrons gained here on the Cold One Knights. They came in with no chevrons, ended with 1, 1, and 2. So some good work there, just dishing out the pain. Now, on my opponent's part, I don't think this build is necessarily bad, though personally I would not try to go melee on melee against Dark Elves. I don't think it's a great idea. Because Dark Elves really do have a lot of AP. And your primary melee damage with Empire is very dependent on its armor to perform. So I can understand a Demigryph Knight or 2 just to try to have that staying power. But in my opinion, it's better to go a little more missile heavy, a little more skirmish heavy. But with this build, I think the main misplay for my opponent was popping all of his abilities early on to kill Malekith, when really you could have probably just popped the... I misplayed hard, let's be honest here, guys. So Gal Miraz, you could have popped that, crumped Malekith over top the noggin. Malekith would have been gone and dead. with just Galmaraz, and then you would have had all your abilities ready to go for that later grind. And I'm not sure my opponent would have won even with all those abilities, but I think it would have been a much closer fight. And he could have definitely ground things out a lot better, because at that point it wouldn't just be my debuffs against nothing. It would have been my debuffs against a lot of buffs, especially from Carl and the Warrior Priest. But regardless, well played here to Central Darkfield. Good little game there, and hope you guys enjoyed. I know it's been a while since I posted, and I will be doing a bit of a channel update in the coming days, just discussing what we've got planned, and I do have some projects in mind that hopefully will be getting posted in the coming weeks. But for now, I will be trying to get in a few battle replays every now and then. Hopefully you guys did enjoy, and as always, leave your thoughts and opinions down below. I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. Do appreciate your time, guys, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.